Hi, this is Amber Unabridged. You may have guessed by the title of this video that I'm going to be talking about my Book Riot Read Harder Challenge 2018 wrap up. I completed the challenge, although technically I didn't fulfill one of the prompts, and I will elaborate on that when I get to it. I got lazy with it. Ooh. Now that I've moved my entire camera and fixed my stupid hair, let's dig into it. So the first prompt for the 2018 Book Riot Read Harder Challenge is to read a book published posthumously. And for that, I chose Northanger Abbey by Jane Austen. I love Jane Austen. And this was an amazing book. I loved it so much. I didn't actually write down what any of my star ratings were for any of these. I don't know, check my Goodreads. I'll leave the link down below. The next prompt is to read a book of true crime. For this one, I listened to the audiobook for Serial Killer Files by Harold Schechter. It was really fascinating. It was about some of the most prolific and terrible serial killers in human history, and it was really interesting to listen to. Next is a classic of genre fiction. For this one, I'm choosing Lord of the Rings Fellowship of the Ring by J.R.R. Tolkien. I loved this. I enjoyed the writing a lot, but it's definitely something I have to be in the mood for. The next, a comic written and drawn by the same person. I am choosing Dengeki Daisy by Kyousuke Motomi. This is a manga series that I've been reading since only the first volume was published in the United States. I love the story a lot. It's a comedy romance, essentially. I read volumes 7 through 15, so any of them count. Kyousuke Motomi writes and illustrates all of them. Number 5 is a book set in or about one of the 5 BRICS countries. So that's Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. For this one, I chose Born a Crime by Trevor Noah. It's about being born in South Africa during apartheid. Really interesting. It was serious and funny. The next one is a book about nature. For that, I chose The Soul of an Octopus by Montgomery. I listened to the audiobook for it, and it was really interesting. The 7th prompt is to read a Western, and for that, I chose True Grit by Charles Portis. I really enjoyed this story. I thought it was told really well. Number 8 is a comic written or drawn by a person of color. For that, I chose Afar by Leila del Duca. It's a wonderful story. Number 9 is a book of colonial or post-colonial literature. For this prompt, I'm saying The Last of the Mohicans by James Fenimore Cooper. I do not like this book. I don't like it. It's not fun. It's not entertaining. It's boring and it's bad. My buddy read this with Sue over at Spine Breakers, and we commiserated together over how terrible it was. In the process, we're able to keep each other entertained. The next is a romance novel by or about a person of color. For that, I chose The Wedding Date by Jasmine Guillery. The next is a children's classic published before 1980. I chose The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett. It was originally published in 1911, so it fits. The next is a celebrity memoir. For this, I chose Wishful Drinking by Carrie Fisher. 13 is an Oprah Book Club selection. For that, I listened to the audiobook for Sula by Toni Morrison. Yeah, it was good. I liked it. 14 is a book of social science. For that, I chose Barracoon, the story of the last black cargo by Zora Neale Hurston. She interviewed a man who was one of the last people brought over on a slave ship from Africa. 15 is a one-sitting book. So for this, I'm choosing Lock and Key, Alpha and Omega by Joe Hill and Gabriel Rodriguez. And by the time I got to Alpha and Omega, which is the 6th volume and the last, I read this in one sitting. I don't think I even got up to P. I love this series so much. The next prompt is number 16, the first book in a new to you YA or middle grade series. For this, I chose The Wishing Spell by Chris Colfer. I can't think of the name of the series, but it's the first book. It's about a brother and a sister who are kids, and they get their grandma's old storybook, and then they end up in the storybook meeting all of the characters. It was just really fun and interesting, and I really liked it. 17, a sci-fi novel with a female protagonist by a female author. I had a lot of trouble trying to decide which book I wanted to choose for this one. I was gonna say Fledgling by Octavia Butler initially, but then I read Binti by Nnedi Okorafor, and I talk about Octavia Butler a lot, and I haven't yet had a chance to gush over Nnedi Okorafor, even though I've only read the Binti trilogy. It was really cool, okay? It was really cool, guys. Okay. Yeah, see, now I knew that Lock and Key came up again. The next one, for 18, is a comic that isn't published by Marvel, DC, or Image. And for that, I choose Lock and Key. Any of them, all of them. I read them all in 2018. They are published by IDW Publishing. Next is a book of genre fiction in translation. I chose We the Drowned by Karsten Jensen, which is set in Denmark. I couldn't say confidently that this is an official, genre. I feel like it has to be. It's like a seafaring novel, book set on and around the ocean. It's really good. And I tried looking up to see if he had any other works, but I think he's got 2 others, but they haven't been translated to English yet. So I'm a little salty about that. Next is a book with a cover you hate. For this one, I chose My Friend Dahmer by Durf Backderf. It has the movie cover, and I hate movie covers more than most things. 21 is a mystery by a person of color or LGBT plus author. I chose The Surgeon by Tess Gerritsen. I think I might have accidentally read an abridged version, and I'm really upset about that. I didn't really enjoy it a whole lot. It was fine. It wasn't great. It was fine. The next is an essay anthology. This is the one that I didn't technically fulfill. I read 2 essay collections, but I did not read an anthology. So I didn't realize that until after I read both of these. I'm just counting the ones that I read, the collections that I read, because I don't care that much. It still pushed me to read stuff. I listened to the audiobooks for both Me Talk Pretty One Day by David Sedaris and Essays After 80 by Donald Hall. I didn't even know who Donald Hall was. Apparently he's a poet. Based on his essays, based on the stories he was telling, I would be very interested in checking out his poetry. I like poetry. I'm a little picky with poetry. The next is a book with a female protagonist over the age of 60, Howl's Moving Castle by Diana Wayne Jones. That has a character, Sophie, who is actually a young girl, but she ends up becoming an old woman in the story. So she's not actually over 60 years old, but for a while she's over 60 years old. So I felt that counted, and it was a delightful story. The last and final one is an assigned book you hated or never finished. For that, I went with Beloved by Toni Morrison. I read this in high school, I think my senior year, but I only read part of it because I wasn't super motivated to do so because the teacher was out on maternity leave and the substitute didn't know what was going on. So I just kind of never finished reading it, and I always wanted to. So I finally got to, and it's amazing. That's my Book Riot Read Harder challenge for 2018. I suppose this is a decent time to say that I'm not going to participate in the 2019 Read Harder challenge due to having my own reading goals that I would like to fulfill, which I can elaborate on in another video. But I really enjoyed this, and I found it really fascinating and interesting. And if anybody has anything they would like to share, let me know, comment. I will leave links to things down below. Thanks for swinging through my channel. Remember to always read responsibly.